Hey, beautiful people. Hope that you have an amazing day. I'm gonna get into Donald Trump. I'm gonna play a clip for you. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get through the whole clip tonight, but we'll talk about Donald Trump and hopefully we'll get into the DOJ. Okay, everything I share is for educational and for his purposes. I'm going to pull it up for you. Good morning, Donald.
The proud, hard-working patriots of Lehigh Valley.
I'm not going to go through all this because of the time, but we'll
So
see.
proud to say I won this state in
Second
a
morning off.
landslide. We won it by so much. And remember, I had the couple of little statements: too big to rig, make it too big to rig, because these people cheat like hell. They cheat like hell, but we won it by a lot. And maybe we should run again. So we run one more time. I'd like to do that. But I got more votes than any candidate in the history of Pennsylvania. Can you believe that, Mo? You would not. And today I'm especially honored to be here in the place that builds some of the toughest vehicles on the road, Mack Trucks. Mack Trucks is doing a great job. All of the Mack people, the chairman, we have the whole group of here, all the leaders, the big guys they're building. They're trying to get a contract for 15,000 trucks. 15,000. I said, that's a lot. I said, how many are you looking for? 10, 15? No, 15,000. Sir, that's a lot of trucks. For more than 100 years, this legendary company has been making trucks right here in eastern Pennsylvania, building the heavy-duty machinery that keeps our economy rolling, our factories moving, and our industries rolling all across the nation. And you are the men and women who put your pride and spirit into those beautiful words, stamped on every Mack truck that said, made in the USA. It's made in the USA. And I want to especially thank the president of Mack Trucks, Stephen Roy, who I just met, who's a great guy, a great patriot, very Republican too, which I like. He's a very strong Republican. Stephen, where are you, Stephen? Stephen. We got to get a certain very talented congressman reelected. You know that we got to get him. Where are you? Where are you, Mr. Congressman? We got to get you back in. Thank you, and thank you, Stephen. But a very special thanks to every single worker in this fantastic factory. The job you're doing here is incredible. And I know you're applying for a big one, and we'll see how that goes. We'll have to call up some people and see if it's good. If your price is right, Stephen? I don't know, maybe we'll get it down a little bit. We'll get it down. 15,000 trucks, that's a lot of trucks. But that's what this is all about. It's greatness. You built this country, and you are the ones who are making America great again. We're the hottest country in the world for decades. The workers of this Commonwealth watch globalist politicians let other countries rip you off and close your factories, rob your jobs, take them away to foreign lands. And then I came along. We stopped it very quickly. Then we had a rigged election. But they were so stupid they kept everything going a little bit for us. And what we've done in the last year and a half, nobody's ever seen anything like it. They put America first, they put China first, they put illegal aliens first, and everybody else first but you. But we put you first by a lot. But at long last, you finally have a president who is putting workers first, putting Pennsylvania first, and putting America first. We're doing that, and we're doing that like nobody's ever seen before. Starting on my first day back in office, and this goes all the way back to 2016 too, but right from a year and a half ago, nobody's ever seen anything like this. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world by a lot. But I stood up to the trade cheaters and abusers and violators of the world like No president has ever stood up before. And now I'm standing up again because Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, if that's okay. And we're doing quite well. I placed 50% tariffs on foreign copper, aluminum, and steel so they couldn't come in and steal your jobs. And sometimes even more than 100% tariffs. They weren't going to come in from foreign lands and steal your jobs. If they wanted to come in, they pay 100%, they pay 200%, they pay I don't care what it is. They're not going to steal your jobs, okay? And they stop. And right now we have more factories being built, and I mean car factories, AI factories, factories of every type than we've ever had in the history of our country by 3 times. That's because they didn't want to pay the tariff. How don't you pay a tariff? You build your factory here and you hire American workers. It's quite simple, actually. But as you know, I placed a 25% tariff on foreign automobiles, and very importantly, I opposed a 25% tariff on medium and heavy-duty trucks, so that Mack Truck could do very well with this factory in Pennsylvania. But all American roads will be filled with American trucks very shortly. Very few people are able to compete with us anymore. They used to rip us off. It was like we were a bunch of babies. American labor worked with us too. I just met the head of your unions, and they've been terrific. They work with us, and they're fair. They treated us good. Maybe we can negotiate a little bit tougher. Where the hell are the union guys? Those guys are great. They're great. There they are. I want to just say hello. We gotta make sure you vote for our congressman here. I'm not doing this for my health.
Doc, thank you so much for the super sticker, my friend. Thank you.
Music. We even have music. Yes. Within a single year of taking office, I slashed trade deficit with China by the largest amount in the history of trade. And we, by the way, have the biggest trade deficit cut in the history of our country, 67%. Think of this. We had a trade deficit. We cut our trade deficit. If you're a president and you cut it by 1%, they say, oh, you're doing a great job. 2%, you're a genius. I cut it by 67%. That's why you have all of these factories being built. They'll soon be opening. They're already opening, but when those factories are opening, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to negotiate very good salaries, that I can tell you, because they need you. In many ways, they need you more than you need them. American exports to the rest of the world are up by $150 billion. You hear that, Bo? It's not bad. You're going to wrestle a long way to make that. Bo's going to have to win a lot of tournaments to make that money. Think of it, $150 billion up. We never had that. We always have losses. We take in much more than we send out. Now we're up $150 billion, and that's nothing, because when all these factories are opening up, Mr. Senator, they're not that great. What a great senator you have. Did you fight? David, did you fight hard? He was with me, I think, every stop. I said, where the hell is David? He's right there, sir. And he's working hard, and he's a great guy, and he's working very hard for you. But a short time ago, we were a dead country. We were laughed at all over the world. We were a dead country. People were laughing. They were saying, what the hell happened to that country? The king of Saudi Arabia said it 2 years ago. I was over there. He said, you know, sir, 2 years ago you were a dead country, and now you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. And we're hotter now than we were then. He then proceeded to announce that he's investing $2 trillion in our country, along with Qatar, along with UAE. Bahrain is investing, Kuwait's investing, but countries from all over the world, they're all investing in the United States. 2 years ago, they wouldn't even think of it. They thought we were finished. When I went to China 2 weeks ago, I met with President Xi, and we greeted each other, and he looked at me and said, man, do you move fast. Because they thought they had us, but now it's really the opposite. We are doing numbers that nobody's ever seen before. So we had a great meeting. But as you know, we just achieved a historic peace agreement with Iran to end the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. And by the way, yesterday, 19 million barrels of oil flowed out of the Strait of Hormuz. A very beautiful. That's the most oil in the history of the Strait. No, it's never been any, you've never seen anything like that. It's called an oil gusher. And most importantly, we are ensuring one thing very importantly, because this is why I did it. I did it for this reason, 99% for this. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And they've agreed to that. But remember, this wasn't easy. We had 47 years worth of presidents and other people, other countries too. We're not the only one that never did anything. They were the bully of the Middle East. And now we're leaving Iran with no Navy, no Air Force, no anti-aircraft, no missile capability, no nuclear program. We're leaving them without any nuclear capacity, and they've agreed to that. And we're getting along quite well, although you read the fake news, you never know. Think of it. The fake news, they have no army, they have no navy, they have no air force, they have no anti-aircraft. We can fly over Tehran just at will, nobody gonna do anything to us. And then I read the fake news that they're doing quite well. They're not doing quite well. These people right there, look at all of them. Whoa. 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 That's a lot of press. That's almost as much press as Bo had at the White House last week when he knocked out his opponent in the first round. I think you had more. Probably more press. But the Iran economy has been crushed and their defense industrial base has been damaged so severely that it'll take them many years to rebuild, many, many years. And now we're trying to
thank you again for the super sticker. Oh yeah.
Deal that's fair, and we also want to work out a deal. You know, the stock market hit a new high today again, and oil, for the first time in months, hit. Think of it, $70 a barrel. So we got a 70. That equates to a very low price that oil is going to come charging down. And with oil comes everything else, because I inherited from these Democrats. You know, they're Democrats. I changed the E for U. It's very simple, Democrats. I don't know why I didn't think of that 9 years ago. I just thought of it about a month ago. They're Democrats because their policies are so dumb. Men and women's sports. You know, Bo was with one of the great champions, Tony. Tony, could you have taken most women in the heavyweight champion? He was the heavyweight champion of the world. Do you think you would have had trouble with a woman of approximately your size? It'd be hard to find a woman of your size, but if we did, I think you would have been okay. What do you think, Bo? Could you have handled it? I think so. What about you, Bo? Could you handle a woman of approximately, or what, 182 or something? Think there's a 182-pounder that could give you a little tussle? I don't think so. I don't think so. He's such a nice guy. She said, no, not really. I don't think so. When she looked at those ears of Bo, when she looked at those ears, she'll say, I'll take a pass. She'll say, I'm not going to fight that guy. The average price of gasoline nationwide is down 60 cents a gallon just from a short while ago. And remember this. We had to make this detour. We had to go to Iran. You can't let them blow up the Middle East and then us, if that's possible. We would have gotten them before, but they would have blown up Israel. They would have blown up the entire Middle East. You can't let that. You want to see a bad economy? That's a bad economy. So remember that our oil in the middle of this conflict was less than it was for Sleepy Joe Biden. And we're putting out a fire. Biden, Clinton, Bush, all of them. Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of Barack Hussein Obama? None of them did anything. Obama gave them 1.7 billion in green cash. Remember, on a 747, they flew over piles of cash. 1.7 billion dollars. Gave them hundreds of billions of dollars and thought they could bribe them into peace. No, the only thing they understand is what these guys in the front row understand is the hammer. Because if If you look at what we did to their nuclear capacity with those beautiful B-2 bombers, that was truly a hammer. In fact, we named it a hammer, Operation Hammer. But our economy is ready to soar to levels the world has not seen before. I believe that, David. I think it's going to levels that nobody's ever seen before. All these factories are being built and they're going to be occupied. They're hiring people now. It's going to be something very beautiful. I don't know who's going to follow me, but remember that I was the one that did it, okay? Somebody's going to walk into office and they're going to have the most successful country in history, and they're going to be bragging what a great job they did. And we did it. In 4 long years of the crooked Joe Biden administration, they got less than $1 trillion of new investments. So think of it, Crooked Joe. What do you like better, Sleepy Joe or Crooked Joe? Ready? Sleepy Joe. Crooked Joe. I'm surprised. I like Sleepy Joe better, but they're both good. I use them both. But in less than 1 year, so they did much less than $1 trillion of investment from outside the world. Much less than 1 trillion. We just got the final, we had 11 months and 18, but we just got the final $19.1 trillion in 12 months. Can you believe it? Investment from all over the globe. And since the election, the stock market has set 73 all-time records. In other words, yeah, sit down. We got plenty of time. It's an honor that you all stand. Oh, look who we have, the Wall. Stand up, Wall. Look at this guy. I'm going to get a suit just like that guy. I'll bet he's been to 200 rallies. Him and, where are my guys? Oh, look at my guys, front row Joes. I got these front row Joes. Where are the women from North Carolina? They're here. They travel all over the world. I don't know what the hell's with their husbands. These beautiful women from North Carolina. They travel all over. They went to 200 rallies. How many rallies have front row Joes gone to? Hundreds. Everyone. And then it was very sad. My last rally, I said, I may never see you again, right? And then we won the election in a landslide. And who the hell do I see? I see my front row Joes. So I'm happy about it. Thank you. What a group. We had some group with me all over the place. And when they didn't make the front row, it was very demeaning to them. They were not happy, right? The front row, they became actually very famous, front row Joes. And the typical 401k, as you know, is up almost $30,000 in, it was 12 months, it was 13 months. It's up 44%. Think of that, up 44%. Because, you know, as goes the stock market, so goes a lot of your own wealth. And I tell about this police officer. I met a police officer first, had a similar thing, but now the numbers are even more. I was in New York, I met a great police officer, New York finest, and he said, sir, I want to thank you. I said, for what? He said, my wife didn't think much of me much. We had a real difficulty. She thought I was nothing. I'm a police officer. I'm a tough guy. Look at him. The muscles were all over the place. He didn't suffer from that. But she thought maybe that muscle wasn't so good because he was always losing money in the stock market. And he said, sir, in the last year and a half, my 401k is up 74%, sir. And she thinks I'm Warren Buffett. She thinks I'm a super genius. I said, how are you getting along with her? He said, well, I'm not so sure I like her anymore, but that's like, I won't tell you that. I refuse to say that. He's getting along just fine. But a lot of people have come up to me, David, and they think there's 401ks, you know, the stock market. Who has a 401k here? Yeah, look, a lot of people. More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country, and we've created over 32, now, think of this, 32,000 new jobs just starting in Pennsylvania alone. David, you have to get credit for that. And in the last few months alone, much higher as the factories start to open. Because right here in Lehigh Valley, Eli Lilly has just announced, great company, by the way, drug company, a $3.5 billion investment in a brand new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility right down the road. That's 1,000 jobs, just that one. Nokia is investing $30 million to expand its semiconductor testing and packaging operations, thousands of jobs. And B. Braun has announced a $20 million expansion of its medical device manufacturing operation in Allentown. I love Allentown. I love any place that votes for me, which is the entire state of Pennsylvania, the entire Commonwealth. Never make the mistake of using the word state. Well, I'm not sure that people care, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania voted for us at levels that nobody's ever seen before, David, and you too, and we're proud of you because you had guts. This man had guts. He lost one time to a tough candidate, and he did it again to a tougher candidate, and I tell him if he didn't win, his wife, who's a beautiful woman, would have left him. I'm telling you. Dina, she would have left him, so he had great courage doing it a second time. He was a very successful guy. He ran stand up there. She would have left. I was so worried because he's a friend of mine, and that was a tough race. You know, he was running against a guy 24 years, and his father was in for like 30 years. That's a long time, and he had to beat him, knowing the pressure. That's called pressure. Knowing his wife was gone if he didn't make it. She was gone 100%. But he's married actually to a terrific woman. She probably would have stayed. I'm not 100%. And last year I saved a great American company, U.S. Steel, and we're keeping its headquarters in Pennsylvania where it belongs. And $17 billion has been invested by a great company in saving U.S. Steel. They were gone. I think they were closed up and they were ready to go. And now they're building factories like nobody's ever seen. They're expanding the operations and building a couple of brand new steel plants. They're up to over 17 billion, which is a lot more than they even told us, because they've fallen in love with this Commonwealth. They've fallen in love with your whole area, the people. I think they've fallen in love with the people more than anything else is what they told me, because they've done more than they said they would. And thanks to our great Republican majorities in Congress last 4th of July, I proudly signed the largest tax cuts in American history. We gave you the biggest tax cuts in American history. Not bad. Not bad. We delivered no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great Pennsylvania seniors. No tax. And our tax cuts are projected to boost take-home pay for Pennsylvanians by an average of more than $10,000 a year per household. That alone should win us the midterms. We got to win the music. We got to win the midterms. Music's another great guy. Stand-up music. Been with me forever. He was thinking about running for governor. I think he would have won, but he was thinking about running for governor. And I said, I want you to stay in Congress. I want you to stay. And we appreciate it. You've done a great job. But always remember, every single Democrat in Congress voted against our tax cuts. So think of it. All of those tax cuts and many more, they want to raise your taxes, not lower. They voted against tax cuts. You know, all my life, I sort of been political in that I found it very interesting. I was a very successful real estate person, but I love watching politics. And my whole life I watched politicians say, we will cut your taxes, we will cut. I never heard these people say, we will raise your taxes. This country has gotten very strange politically, especially with all the communists that are up for election. You know, you have communists. These aren't socialists, these are communists. And they're all up. How about the guy in Maine? He's got the Nazi stickers. He's got the whole deal that they're trying to say. So for 8 years, 10 years, they said Trump is a Nazi. Now they can't say that anymore because they have a guy with a tattoo on his chest. Unbelievable. But they voted against no tax on Social Security. They voted against no tax on tips. They voted against no tax on overtime. And if they got into office, you will have all of those taxes and all of that money that you're saving, including The big savings on Social Security, it's going to all be terminated. You're going to have to start paying it. They want to pay it. I don't know what's wrong with these people. They voted in favor of the estate tax or the death tax on your farms and your businesses. You know, farmers and small business people, they love their children. If they love them, it's great. Most of the people love them. Some can't stand. I know people that can't stand their kids are not going to leave them 10 cents. But if you love your child, you want to leave your farm, especially from these farmers, it's born in them somehow. They want to have their children on the farm. The children don't want to leave, but sometimes they're land rich and cash poor. You know, I've known that expression too. I've oftentimes been land rich and cash poor. It's not a good period of time. And you die and you have a estate and they tax you at 40, 50, 60%. And they end up losing their farm, losing their small business. And in many cases, you don't read about this, they commit suicide. They actually go out and commit suicide because they're forced off their farm by a bank. They have to go out and borrow money from a bank. And they're forced to go out, borrow the money. They're unable to pay the loan at the bank. Even if it's a nice bank, they give them a chance, they give them another chance, and then they ultimately foreclose, they lose everything. And in many cases, they commit suicide. And they said, we're not going to have that crap go on. So you have no estate tax to pay on your small farm, small business, or your farm, your businesses. And you can, if you love your children, you can leave your farm or your small business to your child, and they're not going to lose it. If you don't love your children, then don't listen to what I'm saying, because it doesn't matter. If you don't like them, don't leave them anything. The hell with them. They probably deserve it. But think of it, the Democrats voted against the border wall. The border wall gave us the safest border. We have the safest border now in the history of the country. They voted against voter ID. You know why they voted against voter ID? Because they want to cheat. There's only one reason, Mr. Wall, right? Correct. Where do I get that suit? One day, I don't know if it's very presidential. I'm going to walk up in a suit with the design of the wall on it. I don't know. What do you think? I already have a, you know, I have a very elegant wife, and she says, darling, please don't dance. It's not presidential. I said, but the people love it when I dance. And she said, please, the men and women's sports, please don't do the weightlifting thing. And don't do the swimming thing. You know, the weightlifter where he goes up. And the record stood for years and years of this young lady. She's trying out for the Olympics, and she's going to do it. And the record stood for 19 years, and they put an eighth of an ounce on one side, an eighth of an ounce on the other. They have to understand, Melania, who's now a movie star, she got the #1. Can you believe she hit big? That's not good. There can only be one star in a family, please remember. But they put a little eighth like a feather on one side, a little bit just to break the record. The parents are sitting right there where Big Bo is. He's a nasty guy that she threw her. Yeah, gotta be very nice to Bo. I'm sure he's never met me. But she said her parents are right there in the front, and they're so proud. The father's not so proud because he knows she's not going to do it. Because she's a woman, that's a lot of weight. The mother, though, is screaming, darling, I love you, do it. And she gets over the weights, and she stays there. And then she gets him, and she gets him. And the mother's screaming, darling, I love you, darling. And the father's looking, saying she has no chance. And she's like this, you see it? You drops him. And she's like devastated for the rest of her life. And then a guy comes along who transitioned. That's the term. I've gotten very good at that term. I used to take a lot of heat for my definition of the movement over. But he transitioned. He was a poor, very poor, bottom of the line, male weightlifter. But now he's a female weightlifter. And he looked at the amount, I think it was like 210 pounds or something like that. Well, that's a lot for a woman, but not that much for a man. You could do it with one hand. And he goes, looks down at the weight. I think he did a few things for emphasis. And he won the medal. And everyone said, oh, isn't that wonderful? Are we crazy? men should not be able to participate in women's. That's a 99 percentage. You ever hear the fake news? I said, that's an 80-20 issue. That's not, it's 99-1. You know, I've been doing politics now for 10 years, not that long considering I won 3 elections, you know, really not. But we did great in the second one, it was a rigged deal. But pretty short, but with all of that, and all of the time I spent speaking to people, they say, sir, could you cut taxes on this? Could you get me a tax deduction on a car loan? I did that, by the way, I did that. If you borrow money to buy a car, you get it, all these things. They asked me for hundreds of things. Not once did anyone ever come up to me and say, sir, please, this is so vital. You have to be able to have men playing women's sports. Please, sir, could you pull that off? I've never had anyone ask me for that. So I say it's a 99-1 issue, not 80-20. The fake news back there, they say, oh, that's a tough issue. But I don't like talking about it because I want them to continue on with that. I want them to continue on with the, you know, they're in favor of the mutilization of your child for transgender purposes, the mutilization of your child. And I would say politically, it's a very good thing to run against a person that's in favor of that kind of stuff. So we let them, we don't bring it up during off political seasons, but we have a political season coming up. And they'll be doing all of that nonsense, and they're going to lose a lot of elections. And now, if you look in New York, we have all communists running. They're all excited. They're going to win their primaries, but I can't imagine they can beat a normal Republican. So I think it's a good thing, Musa. What do you think? I think it's a good thing. Wouldn't you like to run against somebody like that? Well, Shapiro's not that much better, to be honest with you, but I will. They're all being forced. They're all being forced. A guy like Shapiro, he's going to be forced to the left. Otherwise, he's not going to get the nomination. But they voted against proof of citizenship. Think of it. We'd like to have proof of citizenship. You walk into the voting booth. Would it be okay, sir, if I looked at you and said, how dare you ask me for my citizenship? You know, in California, if you ask that question to a voter, you are criminally liable. In other words, they can put you in jail. If you say, sir, do you have proof of citizenship? They put you in jail if they ask that question. You're not allowed to ask that. Did you know that? It's the craziest thing I've ever seen going on. Hey, did they screw the kid, Pratt? Boy, he's leading, and all of a sudden he's lost. And it was sort of interesting. The election, you ever see an election where they're 2.5 weeks in? An election that takes weeks to count the votes? But after the evening, it looked like he was going to win or certainly be in the runoff. And then I started hearing rumors as the days went by, days and days went by, that Pratt is fading. He's fading. I said, they rigged the election. And then lo and behold, he didn't qualify, even though he was so far up in the third place person that it was almost impossible, and he didn't qualify. And then it started happening with the next candidate, Steve Hilton, who's running for governor. He was up in front, just about leading, no problem. And all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 days after, this is after the election's over, they said, Steve Hilton is starting to lose votes. I said, here we go again. And I called up the U.S. Attorney in California. They said, we're going to have a number in the next week. Next week. I called up the very powerful, very good U.S. Attorney in California, and I said, do me a favor, take a look. They're trying to steal that election, too. I guess they called up. They said, this is the U.S. Attorney call. We have your great U.S. Attorney here today, by the way, and your assistant U.S. Attorney. They're doing great, David. Thank you. So over the next week, he was definitely going to lose, but the U.S. Attorney called. We wanted to check your votes. About an hour after the call, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hilton has won. So had I not made that call, Steve Hilton would right now be watching the election from home. So I don't know, he would have a great chance, but the election's totally rigged. California's totally rigged. All mail-in ballots, it's a disgrace. We got to pass the Save America Act up there. You got to pass Save America, you, me. These guys, what love. A friend of mine is a very big real estate developer, but he's got a problem with speaking in front of crowds. He chokes, he chokes like a dog. He said, how do you do it? I say, it's easy. because there's so much love in the room. There's so much unbelievable love. It's easy. You know, he's got this tremendous fear of speaking. He said, the guy's a major player. Most of you have heard of him. And he's a killer. He destroys people for a living, financially, not physically, financially. Physically, he can barely walk. He's a basket kid. But he's up here. He's very smart. And he destroys people, very rich. But he can't get up in front of a crowd and talk. I said, what's wrong with you? He said, I don't know, I have a fear of crowds. Do you believe it? All sorts of people. You know, a lot of people want to do what I did. A lot of people, David did it. David was very successful, but he's a great speaker. But a lot of people, they say, well, Trump became president from being a very successful businessman. He became president. I want to do it too. And that's when they find out that they might have the flaw of speaking, or even worse, is a terrible past. You know, the past will come out to haunt you. It's not an easy thing to do, but I love it. You know, I say it's real easy to do when you have people that love you. I guarantee, who here voted for Trump? Who didn't? Well, this is dangerous, so don't raise your hand and think you're going to be cute, because you might be a big problem, and they'll blame me for causing problems. Who did not vote for Trump? Young man, he wants to be. He's a young man. He thinks he's being cute. As he gets pounded on. No, he just said, no, I did. I was the first. He said I'm the first elect. But the Democrats voted in favor of Iran having a nuclear weapon, and they voted against military spending, but I overrode that. Let me tell you, if the Democrats get in, your 15,000 trucks that Mr. Roy is looking to get are dead. They're not going to have 15,000, they're not going to have 15 trucks. They'll be back to the number I originally guessed, right? How many are you making, 15? 15,000 trucks will be down to nothing, zero. And they'll make you put electric on it, you know, electric, so that when you're in the middle of a jungle someplace and you need a charge, where's my charging booth? As opposed to carrying a nice tank of diesel on your back, throwing it in and taking it off, right? Where's my charging booth, they'll be saying? They created the strongest, we created the strongest military in history, and you see that with Venezuela, one-day operation, right? And now we're making a lot of money with Venezuela, and Venezuela's doing great also. It's a happy country now. But it took us exactly 48 minutes to win that war. We're the greatest military in the world, 48 minutes. And we paid for the cost of the war, wait till you hear this, 28 times already, more, but 28 times. So the cost of the war, we've already, because we brought millions of barrels of oil out, and we're getting along great. The people running it, they're our people, they're great people. And the people are happy in the country. They have smiles, they were miserable, they were starving, but they have a lot of oil under that ground. You know how you find oil in Venezuela? Just look at the ground. You'll see oil bubbling up. They have so much oil, they don't know what to do with it, but they had a bad system. They're making more money now for the country than they've ever made before, and we're making a lot of money too. But also Iran, we knocked them out. 1 week, it was essentially militarily over. Much bigger country, 91 million people. And much different ideology. The ideology of the Muslims is slightly different than the ideology of the Catholics. We have the Catholics and the Muslims, slightly different. But Venezuela's been great and Iran's been great. I mean, you know, if Iran's reasonable, if they're smart, otherwise we'll have to finish the job, which will take about maybe less than a week. But they're going to be okay. I think they're going to do what they have to do because we want to have it done. But they voted against lower energy prices, the Democrats did, and then they went on to create the highest energy prices that we've ever had in the history of our country. People don't realize that. Much higher than ours during the war. They had the highest inflation in history. The highest inflation in history, they say 48 years, but that's sort of history as far as I'm concerned. And they were absolutely terrible on affordability. Remember, I got here, my first day, the fake news is screaming at me, what about affordability? I'm only here one day. Remember, eggs were up about 5 times higher than they ever were? And we have prices are coming down right now at levels that you've never seen. And now with oil crashing, you're going to see something really amazing. And to top everything else, they let 25 million people into our country, many of them criminals and thugs and people from mental institutions and drug dealers. They even let 11,888 murderers into our country. Murders, 11,888, more than 50% of which have killed more than one person. And I've gotten the worst of them out. We've gotten them out, Tom Homan and our whole group of people. But the Democrats want open borders and they want them all to come back in. You can imagine that.
Did you say Democrats?
We'll never let that happen again. What they allowed to happen to our country, we can never allow it to happen again. Just get rigged again. But we're pleased to be joined today by one of those Pennsylvanians who's benefiting from the historic tax cuts, Sergeant Sam Elias, with the Bethlehem Police Department. He's a great guy. Sam works the night patrol so that he can help his wife take care of their 6 beautiful children during the day. And I'm told the youngest is named Melania. Can you believe that? The name Melania. Where did you come up with that one? After our great First Lady. So Sam is taking home thousands of dollars extra because of no tax on overtime. And Sam, you want to come up and say a few words? Come on up. Come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to express my appreciation to President Trump, Congressman Ryan McKenzie, and the entire White House administration. As a father of 6 children in a single-income household, I can tell you the Working Families Tax Cuts is a policy that helps my family. Hard work should pay off, not get punished with higher taxes. No tax on overtime, no tax on tips means more money in the pockets of working Americans. For my family, these savings have translated to what was once a day trip to the park is now an overnight stay at the Jersey Shore. Bigger tax returns have allowed Americans to create new family memories and save for future projects. As the president said, I also work night shift as a police sergeant in the fine city of Bethlehem. A shortage in police recruitment has left our department depleted of officers. Our officers get called out for overtime to cover these shortages. Some pay periods, officers are working over 40 hours of overtime. That's why I'm grateful for no tax on overtime. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm also thankful for the support President Trump and Congressman McKenzie have shown for law enforcement. You understand that communities thrive when we invest in public safety. Congressman McKenzie has stood strong with public safety and working families. And that's why he's been endorsed by the brothers and sisters of Bethlehem FOP Star Lot 20. Congressman McKenzie has been on the front lines in supporting public safety. He secured $700,000 for the Bethlehem Police Department for much-needed technology and equipment upgrades at our police department, along with bringing home $1.6 million in funding for volunteer firehouses and infrastructure. Thank you, Congressman. I'm a very grateful American, a son to Lebanese immigrants who came to the United States 50 years ago in pursuit of the American dream. My 80-year-old father is here with me today. He would often tell me Work hard and it'll pay off. Well, 50 years later, thanks to President Trump and Congressman McKenzie, my father's dream has come true. I thank you for that. Additionally, thank you to President Trump and your entire administration. After more than 50 years, the Lebanese people finally have an American ally who advocates for a sovereign and independent Lebanon governed by the Lebanese people. Thank you for that. Mr. President, you have the support of almost 20 million Lebanese people worldwide. Leadership is more than a title, it's action. I'm grateful for the actions coming from President Trump and Congressman Ryan McKenzie. Your actions have prioritized the American dream. Less taxes, safer communities, and America First policies. I thank you, President Trump. Happy belated birthday, and happy birthday to the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. I just looked at all these pages and I said, oh, we're in trouble. But you know what? That was good. That was a good job. I was a little worried when I saw the pages at the page. Very good. Great job. Sam, where's your father? Hello, Bob. How are you? Got a good boy. Got a good boy. Yeah. Taking care of your people. So our administration is also delivering one historic win after another for another group that works a lot of overtime, and that's our great auto workers. We have a lot of auto workers in here today. Just as I promised, the UAW workers, and we did great with them. You know, Republicans, I don't know, for whatever reason, they don't do like I do. But in the campaign, I ended Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, that crazy mandate, which meant that in a short while, all cars had to be all electric, and many of them would be built in China and others in foreign countries all over the world. That's what was going to happen, and I stopped that. I ended it in my first week in office. I ran on it. And you know what? If you like electric cars, I think that's great. I wouldn't say Elon was thrilled with what I did, but he understood that. But if you like electric cars, I think it's great, but you have to have the right to buy a regular, I mean, we have more gasoline than any country anywhere in the world. If you want to have gas, if you want to have a hybrid, you can have whatever the hell you want, including electric. But I terminated Biden's disastrous fuel emission standards that would have crushed Mack trucks. Mr. Roy, your company would be crushed if I didn't do that. You wouldn't be bidding on anything, neither would anybody else. It was the most insane environmental regulations ever conceived of by man. It was totally unreasonable and ridiculous. And you can sell trucks for much less money that are now much better trucks that work, that actually work. And we made interest on auto loans, fully tax deductible, but only if you buy a car that is made in the USA, otherwise we're not interested. Otherwise we're not interested. And I say to the auto manufacturing business in America, we have more auto plants being built today than we've had in 60 years, and I think maybe ever. And bigger and better. They had a big one in a certain state that I love also. I love a lot of places. And they took out this old plant, but it was big. And I said, did you redo it yet? They said, we're not redoing it. We're ripping down and building a brand new one, a beauty. You know the one I'm talking about, Dave. Well, we're pleased to be joined today by Pat McHugh, a Marine Corps veteran, a great guy, who spent 28 years with Mack Trucks. And he leads the cab assembly and serves as new product line launch leader. It's a big deal. And Pat's grandfather worked here, his dad worked here, and now his son is working here and doing well. And they know how important it is to keep manufacturing jobs in Pennsylvania. Pat, say a few words.
afternoon, Mr. President. It is a profound honor and privilege to have you here with us today to help celebrate the upcoming 250th birthday of our America. And most recently, our 125th anniversary of building Mack trucks. My name is Patrick McHugh Jr., and I am a proud Marine Corps veteran. In addition to that, though, I am an even prouder Mack truck employee. Standing here with me today is my father and my son, both Mack truck workers. Together, they have a combined 78 years working experience building the greatest trucks on earth. You can say Mack Trucks runs in our blood. At Mack Trucks, we work hard to build the trucks that help build America. And we are proud that those trucks are built in the United States of America. Along with our UAW colleagues, we're open for business, and we're producing the best quality trucks we ever have. On behalf of our entire team, we warmly welcome you to our plant, Mr. President, home of the finest trucks in America, built by the most skilled and dedicated workforce in the trucking industry. So, Mr. President, I want to say thank you for choosing to highlight Mack Trucks on your visit today, and thank you for supporting our American workforce.
Well, thank you, Pat. That's a good family. That's a great family. You're proud of your company. I want to also thank two people, very special people, because I know them and I know what they do, and it's not easy, but they've done a great job. David Durgan and Timothy Herzog of the UAW committee. Where are you guys? Thank you. They do a good job representing you. Ease up just a little bit so they can get the contract. Just a little bit. Thank you, fellas. Get this congressman elected. That's what you got to do. But we're pleased to be joined also by Labor Secretary Keith Sonderling. Keith, where are you, Keith? Where's Keith? Hi, Keith. Good job. Is he treating you guys good? Is he all right? He better treat you good. A very special guy, somebody that everybody wanted, I have to tell you, everybody wanted him. He's some person who was actually an astronaut. He went out, he made a lot of money because he's smart, and he's now the NASA administrator. You saw that rocket 2 months ago up and go around the moon in record levels, the furthest any ship has ever flown, and come back, and he's working very heavily on the moon, but what he's done with NASA is amazing. And he's a very special person and a brilliant one, Jared Isaacman. Jared, thank you. Great job. As well as, I introduced him a little bit only by the name David, because he knows me and I know him by David. But David McCormick is your senator, and he's a brilliant person, brilliant businessman. And he loves the Commonwealth. He loves Pennsylvania, and this is where he wanted to be, and he had a rough, I told you, he had a rough fight. This is a rough beating, like 24 years, and a father for 24 years. I don't know, I said, are you sure you know what you're doing, David? But you won, and you won easily, and I'll tell you what, you have a great senator, one of the best in the country, so I just want to thank you very much. And 4 warriors for Pennsylvania in Congress. These are warriors. Lloyd Smucker is here. Lloyd, thank you. Thank you. John Joyce is here. John, thank you. Dan Muser is here. Thank you. And these guys are all in good shape, but we got to get Ryan McKenzie. I love you. We got to get Ryan. I'm not here for them, I'm here for him. We got to get Ryan up here. Run up here, Ryan, fast. Nobody wants to hear you. Come on, just run. Nobody wants to hear you, Ryan. Do what David did. He'd go up for 1 minute. Thank you very much, everybody. It's nice to be here sitting. And everybody thought he was the greatest speaker. Okay.
Well, Mr. President, I can't thank you enough for coming here to the Lehigh Valley, highlighting the great men and women of Mack Trucks, doing all the work that you do in Washington, D.C. for our veterans, our first responders, and everybody across this country to continue to maintain America as the greatest country in the world. You are the president that is fighting for all Americans. Thank you for being here.
That's great. He learned something from you, David. That's great. We also have one of the greatest writers anywhere in the country who knows more about the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania, I think, than anybody. She's a terrific person. Right from the beginning, she said Trump is going to win. Therefore, I like her. She said Trump is going to win in 2015. In fact, she wrote an article in 2014. She said this guy Trump should run. I hadn't thought too much about it. I was having a lot of fun putting up buildings. But she was very early on, and I don't think there's anybody that knows more about it. They used to call it the Rust Belt. I call it the Money Belt now. It's gone from the Rust Belt to the Money Belt. Either one is okay, but there's nobody that knows more about it than Selena Zito. She's fantastic. Where are you, Selena? Where are you, Selena, with your beautiful daughter? Thank you, Selena. Selena's an incredible woman, and her daughter is following in her footsteps. She's just been so good. Very powerful writer, actually. Some of the biggest papers in the world. It's nice to have good stories on occasion, truthful stories. Thanks as well to the president of the NRA who's here with me, Bill Hockenberg. Bill, stand up. And they always give me their endorsement because I saved the Second Amendment, and you think it's easy. On occasion, it was not easy, right, Bill? But we did it. We did it with your help. And we're doing a couple of other things working with you and your people. But I think you've done a fantastic job. The NRA, everybody, they really have been. They've been with me right from the beginning. And Bill asked me would I support the national right to carry legislation. How do you feel about national right to carry? That's my free poll. You know what that is? It's a free poll. I don't have to pay $300,000 to somebody that doesn't even do polling. You know, you give your phony numbers. See, those are real numbers. National right to carry. Yeah, we're working on it. And we have a very special guest who you just saw on the highest rated fight show ever in the history of television, the UFC Freedom 250. So this guy, well, I just have to set it up a little bit if I don't know it. Because I'm thinking, you know, I'm a similar size. I weigh more than he does, actually. So therefore, I have a tremendous physical advantage over him. His muscles are slightly harder and slightly younger. He's a lot younger. but I think I can do it because I'm a great athlete. He knows I'm a very good golfer. And I'm much better off on the golf course against him than I am with the wrestling, man. But he went virtually undefeated. I mean, he won 4 years. He was the top wrestler. His friend, Tony, who's another champion, I'll introduce you to, Tony. And these two guys were on the Penn State team. And Bo Nickel, but, I mean, you couldn't defeat the guy. And then he had everything battle. I guess he was a 3 or 4 time All-American. But then he turned pro and he went to the UFC. Did you find them tougher? What? Yes, a little different. You know, a little different. But he's won just about everything. But he had a big fight last week with a lot of pressure, with the White House in the background. And he's a guy that I like. I met him a while ago. I looked at the years. I said, man, this guy's a fighter. You can tell a lot by the years. And he told me, no, he doesn't mind the years. He likes them. It's almost a symbol for great fighters. It's a symbol. That's why I'm worried about you, Tony. You have pretty normal years. But I got to know Bo a little bit, and I got to root for him. And I almost felt like his father up there. His father's great, but I felt like his father, so I was nervous for the fight. And he was fighting somebody that Dana White, the great Dana White, is a phenomenal guy. He said, Bo's got a tough one tonight. I said, why? Why do you do that to him? Because if you lose it this night, it was the biggest audience they've ever had, by far. The whole world watched it. The people at the White House, we had 5,000 seats around the cage we built, and we had 100,000, more than 100,000 people in the park right next door. We had the largest television audience they've ever had, by far. They said, why do you have to give him such a tough opponent? He was pretty tough. But then it happened. So Bo is known as a great wrestler because he was the best wrestler by far in college. Nobody could beat him. And I figured Bo would be wrestling. But no, he wasn't wrestling. He was punching. I said, Bo, grab his legs and start wrestling. That's what you do. But he didn't do that. He didn't listen to me. And he got a shot off that was brutal. And in the first round, right, knocked him out. He was really knocked out. Great fighter. The guy was a great fighter, is a great fighter. So I just want to thank, he's from Penn State. He loves Penn State. He is the NCAA wrestling champion. And just fantastic. And his friend, and you probably know, is also, I think you were roommates, right? That's a tough room. I wouldn't want to fight these two guys. Let's go pick on those two guys. I don't think so. But he was the heavyweight. And he lost a lot of weight. He weighed 35, 40 pounds. I asked him, how much did you wrestle? About 40 pounds heavier. In other words, you want to live, right? You decide to listen. But he was also the champion, NCAA champion, and his name is Anthony Cassar. So come up here, fellas, because I want to just ask the audience a question. Come here, bud. So here's my question. If I work out for the next couple of months, really work hard, lifting those weights and really work, could I beat Bo or Anthony in wrestling? You're very disloyal. You're very disloyal. Say it.
Wow, what an honor to be here. I think walking up here, I was almost as nervous as the fight, but it feels like a fight. Yeah, it feels like it, but this is exciting. I'm grateful to be here with everybody. So grateful to President Trump for making an event that, in my mind, never seemed possible happen. UFC Freedom 250 on the White House lawn. Unbelievable. I don't think there are too many presidents that have the courage to do something like that, and just so unbelievable. For me, both my parents were high school teachers. My dad was a wrestling coach. My grandpa was a wrestling coach, and I grew up around sports and just competing from 5 years old. And so to be able to do something like that is a dream come true. And it's just through hard work, effort, discipline, and a lot of time in the wrestling room, a lot of time in the cage that I was able to do that. And that's really because America is the land of opportunity. And if you set your mind to something and you feel passionate about what you do, you can accomplish anything. And thank you. I don't want to take too much time, but I want to tell a quick story about the first time I met President Trump. It was in 2019 at the White House, and our team and I won the Nationals, the NCAAs, and at Penn State we are. And we were given the opportunity to meet President Trump, and it was really special because he took a lot of extra time to talk with us as wrestlers. I think he respected the wrestlers a lot, and I told him that when I'm done wrestling, I was going to fight, and he asked me if I needed a manager. And I thought that he has better things to do than that, but really since then, I feel like we've had a special connection that I'm extremely grateful for. And fast forward 7 years, I'm fighting on the White House lawn, and I turn and look at my corner, and President Trump is right next to him. And so it felt to me like he was in my corner. I know that was something that was just so special, and I feel like just incredibly grateful. And overall, the whole week of the experience, everything, the word that kept coming to mind and the emotion that I kept feeling was gratitude. And I'm grateful for President Trump, grateful for all my friends and family and supporters, and I'm grateful to be an American, and it's the best country on earth, and God bless you all.
How's everybody doing? This is an awesome crowd. I'll keep this really short. It's just an honor to be here. Bo and I have been roommates since our freshman year at Penn State, and never could imagine this, but it's an honor to support Mr. President, this great nation, and the American workers that build the foundation of the United States of America. So as a small business owner, real estate investor, I just want to thank President Trump for the big, beautiful bill, all he's done for small business owners. And most importantly, I pray that God will continue to bless him and guide him to lead this great nation, and God bless all of us. Thank you.
Two great champions, that's great. It's good to have them here too. We have a lot of champions in the audience. These are two very special people. When you do that, I was saying to myself, going into that ring and you got all these people, we had the richest and the biggest politicians, we had the biggest of everything. You couldn't get a ticket. The tickets were selling for some crazy numbers, I heard. We gave them away to everybody, but somehow some got out. And I was saying that's a tremendous amount of pressure, and you're fighting the toughest people on earth. I mean, these are the strongest, toughest men on earth. No women in the crowd, which is nice. But these are the toughest men on earth, and it's tremendous pressure. And the muscles, you got the muscles, you guys, you got the big strong muscles, but you got this muscle too, because it takes much more than just the normal muscle to win those matches. I mean, the strategy and the genius that goes in. It is a genius. A lot of people wouldn't understand that. But there's a genius. There's a genius in sports. But there's a great amount of courage and power that you have that a lot of other people don't have. So congratulations. Really great job. Great job. Good job, you. In everything we do, we're once again fighting for the people of Pennsylvania, and that includes our amazing Pennsylvania oil and gas workers. And I ended the last administration's war on Pennsylvania energy, and I signed an order to drill, baby, drill. That's what we did. And you helped. The United States is now the #1 producer of oil and gas on earth, larger than Russia and Saudi Arabia combined by a lot. Look at that. Who would have thought that? We were in 4th place. Now we're larger than, that doesn't include Venezuela. Include Venezuela once because it's essentially should be included. I also ended the war on clean, beautiful Pennsylvania coal. In fact, in my administration, as you know, coal was dead. China uses it, other countries, very successful countries use it. The unsuccessful countries use wind, those beautiful windmills that go round and round and don't do anything except cost you money. Every time it goes around, you lose $10. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. No, wind is every country that's using wind is a disaster. Every country that's using our beautiful substances from underground are doing very nicely, thank you. But in my administration, you're not allowed to say the word coal without preceding that word with the words clean, beautiful. So you say clean, beautiful coal. And I have Secretary of the Interior, Doug Berger, who's fantastic, and Chris Wright. And they made a speech about coal, and they mentioned coal like 50 times in the speech. It's all about coal. And they kept saying, clean, beautiful coal, clean, beautiful coal. I said, no, it's enough. It's enough. But we're not allowed to use the word coal without saying, because what they can do with coal today is amazing. It is clean, it is beautiful, they can clean it. And it's a very powerful form of energy. And if you look at China, they're building 57 coal plants, big monster plants all over their country. And then we're not supposed to do that? No, we're doing that. Clean, beautiful coal. We've invested over $1 billion to save dozens of coal mines. We've saved them. They were ready to close, and some had closed. And more than 100 coal power plants, including the Keystone and the Conemaugh generating stations, right here in Pennsylvania, as you know, are really moving now. They're employing a lot of people. They were all getting ready to close up. They were essentially closed. We're working hard to lower the cost for all consumers, and we want powerful energy. Under my administration, the most favored nation agreements on drug prices that we just did are delivering the largest prescription drug price cuts in history, with numbers like 400, 500, and because they know how good it is, because they can't produce it. They've been trying to do it for years, favored nation. We paid the highest drug price in the world by far. As an example, for the fat drug, which Bo and Tony don't need to take. A lot of people are taking it. Who takes the fat drug? So in New York, think of it, it was costing a fortune. Many, many times, it was costing $1,300. And in London, it was $87. And a friend of mine is extremely fat, sloppy, but very brilliant. He's a brilliant businessman, but he's a slob, there's no question about it. A very neurotic person, which you need sometimes to be successful. But he called me up, he used to call me Donnie. Donnie! Now he calls me Mr. President. That's a sign of great respect. But he said, President, I just came over here and I bought, I won't say it was epic or whatever the hell it was, but I bought the fat drug. I said, I didn't know you used it because it's not working. And I used him as, he's begging me not to use his name, so I won't, but he's a very successful, he's actually a pretty well-known guy, brilliant business guy, worth a lot of money. And he checked, he just, you know, he said, well, how come in London I just sent out and I'm paying $87 and in New York I'm paying $1,300? I said, because that's the way the prices are rigged. And it's rigged, the whole world is rigged against us. And I said, but you know what? You brought it out better than anybody could bring it out because I've been looking at it. They all said it was impossible to do. And I went to the drug companies. I said, well, it's not going to be any more. You're going to raise their price a little bit. You're going to lower ours a lot because the world is bigger than us. So it really worked that way. And they said, well, we'll do it. They were very unhappy, but they knew I wouldn't get it from the countries because you had to get it from the countries. Then I went to France. I said to a very nice man named Emmanuel Macron, I said, Emmanuel, you got to raise your prices on drugs. Of course I would not do that. Why would I do that? Because it's unfair. We're paying 10 times more than you. And you're going to have to raise them a little bit, and we're going to drop ours a lot. He said, no, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will. He said, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will. We're putting a 100% tariff on all wines and champagnes coming into the United States. He said, yes, I will do that. Okay. And I had the same conversation with Germany, with every country, with UK, every single one of them within 5 minutes agreed to do it. Nobody could believe it. And they agreed to raise their price, and we have gotten the biggest price reductions in the history of drugs, medical. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So instead of paying $1,300, you'll be paying about $175. Nobody's ever done that before. And this is on many, many drugs. A pill that sells for $10 in London and selling for $150 in Texas, any place, it's all the same in the United States. They basically discriminated. So now instead of $10, it goes to $20. Because again, the world is a big place. and we would bring ours down to 20, from like 150 down to 20. This is the kind of price reductions you're getting. Go to Trump.com, by the way. And I didn't name it. That was Bobby Kennedy that did it with Dr. Oz. Everyone thinks I named it. I did not name it, but that site is really it. And these are the biggest price reductions in the history of our country for anything having to do with drugs, prescription medicine. So that alone should win the midterms. And there's a real chance that they would end it because they're totally controlled by these foreign countries, the Democrats. So starting next week, weight loss drugs will be available for just $50. Think of that. For seniors who previously had to pay $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, couldn't pay it. Think of that. Now, they don't want to write, look, they turn the cameras off when I talk about it because they don't want good stuff for us, because they don't want us to win elections. And why, I don't know. Why they want to have people pouring into our country, why they want to have high taxes, why they want to have all of these problems that took place over the last 4 years in the last administration, one of the worst administrations in history. But the other ones wouldn't be much better because they have all of these crazy policies. They've gone communist. But just over 1 year ago, we inherited the worst border in history, but I quickly turned it into the most secure border in the history of our country by far. Almost nobody's ever been there. And in the past 13 months, and this is a chart kept by generally Democrat people, in the past 13 months, 0 illegal aliens have been admitted into the United States. And even I find that argument, but it's 0. I mean, they'd love to have it be high, but we can't do that. We have a country and we're going to run it well. We don't want to have prisons released into our days. Some of these countries were emptying their prisons into the United States of America through the southern border. Prison population. Some of the countries had no prison population left. You know what that saves them? Some of them had no mental institutions. The mental institutions were taken. All of those people were taken to our southern border and allowed to just walk freely into our country under Sleepy Joe Biden and his group of thugs, a group of real thugs. Weaponization, that's all they're good at, weaponization and cheating on elections. In 2025, we achieved the largest drop in the murder rate ever recorded in the history of our country, despite the fact that we haven't gotten all of these criminals out of our country. We had the lowest since 1900, that's 125 years ago. And we cut the flow of fentanyl across our border by 56%. That's a big number. And we cut the flow of illegal drugs coming in by water, coming in by ocean or sea. We cut it by 97%. 97%. It's very drastic, but people aren't traveling that way too much anymore. We have the most powerful. I built the military in my first term. We used it in my second term more than I thought, but we have no choice. We have no choice. But think of it, we cut fentanyl. For years they've been interdicting. They've been grabbing boats, bringing them in, putting them in court. They go out by the same night, get back, sending drugs by the ocean, by the Gulf, by the sea. And now it's down 97%. And we're looking for the 3%. Because I think those 3% are more brave than Ron Nickel was any day. The 3% of the people that are willing to get into a boat to deliver drugs now, they are the bravest people perhaps anywhere in the world. But it won't happen long, but what we've done is amazing. Our military, we have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest law enforcement. And we have the highest number of recruiting. So a year and a half ago, it was headlines. Nobody wanted to join the military, the Army, Navy, Marine. Nobody wanted to join any of them. Air Force, Space Force, I love Space Force, Coast Guard. Nobody wanted to join any of the military. They had tremendous recruitment problems. And even it carried over to the police. You have great police here. The police and the fire departments. Nobody wanted to do anything with the name America, anything with the uniform. And today, we have the highest recruitment, the most successful recruitment. Every single slot is filled. And that includes, they want to be policemen and they want to be firemen and women. So we went from the least successful in our history, David, to the most successful in the history in terms of recruitment. It was very embarrassing. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and it all happened from November 5th. That's when we won the election. From November 5th on, everybody wants to be a soldier. Everybody wants to be in the Army, the Navy, the Marines. They want to fly the jets in the Air Force. The Coast Guard is hot. Everything's hot. And of course, Air Force. You know, I started Air Force. That was a part of the Air Force. The Space Force was part of the Air Force. I said, no, it's got to be separate. Got to do its own thing. And it's become. So we were in third place 4 or 5 years ago, and I put it in. We were losing to China and to Russia. And now we're totally ahead of both of them, like at numbers that they can't believe. Space Force could end up being one of your most. To stop the massive theft of taxpayer dollars, including millions of illegals, we've launched the war on fraud led by our great Vice President, J.D. Vance. Great job. Smart guy. We ended Medicaid for illegal immigrants, and we redirected $50 billion to make the largest investment in rural health in the history of our country, hospitals and everything else in the rural areas. And with the help of our Republican majorities in Congress, we will defend our jobs, our factories, our safety, and we will defend our borders like never before. We will crush violent crime, impose harsh new penalties on dangerous repeat offenders that shouldn't be in our country, crack down on Marxist prosecutors and judges, and we will immediately end the most dangerous thing that's ever been put into our country from the standpoint of law enforcement. Is called no cash bail. You kill someone, you go to the judge, say that you have, then you kill somebody in the afternoon. It's crazy. That was the beginning of crime. We will pass the great health care plan to stop all payments to big insurance companies and give the money directly to the people so they can buy their own health care, which will be much better care at a much lower cost. And we will pass the Save America Act to protect our sacred American. And in the Save America Act, it's very simple. All voters must show a photo, voter ID. Very nice. May we see a picture, please? All voters must provide proof of citizenship. And no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel. And we will also, in that same bill, enshrine in permanent law no men in women's sports and no transgender surgery for our children. So together with the help of patriots throughout Pennsylvania and all across the land, we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. All happy. All happy. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much.
And that has not happened.
In our remaining moment or so, Ashley, we see wage gains.
As much as I love that video that was playing, no, we have to get to the DOJ. You guys, that was a rough stream. You guys didn't like my Trump video? that was rough. All right, let's get to the DOJ. Can you guys handle one more video tonight? That's it. I'll give you one more before I crash. That's a little. Yeah.
efforts generate a
There you
significant
go.
return
You tell me
on
what you think about
investment
this.
for our taxpayers. In terms of Medicaid fraud, we're able to announce today the creation of the West Coast Strike Force and the deployment of additional prosecutors, allowing us to bring charges against a record-setting 295 defendants. Our indictments allege over $518 million in Medicaid fraud between these individual defendants. You're going to hear from Director Patel in a moment, but apprehending alleged fraudsters remains a top priority of the Department of Justice and the FBI and our other law enforcement partners, including the DEA, who's here as well. At last year's takedown, a year ago, we charged multiple individuals for allegedly running a $10.6 billion medical equipment scheme using stolen identities to make false Medicare claims. Today, I can announce that earlier this month, we apprehended 2 of those defendants extradited from Estonia. Separately, over the weekend, we conducted the foreign transfer to custody of a defendant who is allegedly connected to another $3.7 billion in intended loss. I want to thank our tireless federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies who work hard every day and participated in these whole-of-government operations. This is just the beginning. Fraudsters can no longer rip off American taxpayers. If you seek to harm or cheat Americans, we will find you, seize any assets, and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to Secretary Kennedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Blanche, and thank you to the White House Fraud Task Force, to Colin McDonald of the Justice Department, to Director Kash Patel of the FBI, to the HHS Office of Inspector General, Dr. Oz and the CMS team, and the investigators and law enforcement officers who brought these cases forward. President Trump directed this administration to confront healthcare fraud aggressively, and we are doing that. The 2026 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown uncovered $6.5 billion in alleged fraud, the second largest amount ever charged in a single healthcare fraud operation. The Department of Justice charged a record number of Medicaid fraud defendants. More than 440 defendants now face charges. This effort brought together federal agencies, state partners, and U.S. territories across the United States. 18 of the participating states, as Attorney General Blanche pointed out, were blue states with Democratic governors. Fraud does not recognize party lines, and neither does accountability. Today's cases include the largest Medicaid fraud enforcement action in the Department of history, 165 defendants charged with allegedly submitting more than $200 million in false claims to Medicaid. These schemes did not target government programs. They targeted the American taxpayer. They stole money from workers who pay taxes, from families who depend on Medicare and Medicaid, and from patients who trusted their healthcare professionals to be serving their health interests when it turns out they were just chasing money from our agencies. The allegations in these cases are particularly disturbing. Some defendants allegedly ordered medically unnecessary tests. Others prescribed products that patients did not need. Some allegedly fueled opioid addiction to increase their own revenue. In certain cases, patients allegedly died while believing they were receiving legitimate medical care from providers who only viewed them as billing opportunities. These defendants did not simply break the law, they violated the trust that patients place in medical professionals. One of today's indictments charged a hospice owner in Los Angeles area and 2 marketers in a $27.7 million Medicare fraud scheme. According to the indictment, the owner paid illegal kickbacks to obtain personal information of deceased Medicare beneficiaries. One of the ways that Colin and Dr. Oz have been chasing down hospice fraud, we've closed now 800 hospices in LA. And one of the ways that we've been able to detect that fraud is that in many of them, the patients never die. They live forever. That's not supposed to happen in hospices. And this particular owner was actually going out and purchasing names from coroners of dead patients and then billing us for those, making it appear that some of his patients were actually finally dying. And while taxpayers funded these false claims, the owner purchased a Rolls-Royce Phantom. That case illustrates exactly what is at stake. Every fraudulent dollar diverted into a criminal scheme is a dollar unavailable for patient care, for medical innovation, or for services for vulnerable Americans. During the Biden administration, my predecessor implemented 2 reforms at HHS. One of those was a so-called pay and chase system. We know when invoices come into my agency, we can tell that some of them are fraudulent or probably fraudulent. And the new system said, we're not going to stop those payments. We want everybody paid, and then we'll claw them back at the end. It was called pay and chase. And when I asked people, the careers at HHS, how could you do this? This is crazy, because of course we never claw back anything. They said that they were told to focus on enrollment and not fraud. The other thing that they did is to liquidate our program integrity office. So when my predecessor came into office, there were 80 people in program integrity, which is not enough. It's 50 states and 5 territories. And when I got in, there was only 6 left. So all of those people were transferred or let go, and we were literally doing no program integrity. And that opened up the floodgates for all of this fraud. $100 billion in fraud a year that are being stolen now from my agency. The federal government paid claims first and chased fraud after the money was out the door. And that approach, of course, failed taxpayers. We are ending it. HHS is replacing the old pay and chase system with a detect and prevent strategy that identifies suspicious claims before the taxpayer dollars ever leave the Treasury. We are deploying advanced artificial intelligence and data analytics to identify fraudulent billing patterns in real time, stop improper payments before they occur, and strengthen oversight across federal health programs. Our objective is straightforward: to stop the fraud before it happens. The people charged today should understand that we will continue expanding these capabilities, strengthening enforcement, and pursuing every credible allegation of fraud. If you exploit patients for profit, if you steal Medicaid or Medicare dollars, if you treat taxpayer dollars as your personal bank account, we will investigate you, we will build the case, and we will bring you to justice. We will find fraud, we will stop it, we will recover taxpayer dollars whenever the law permits, and we will restore integrity to the programs that millions of Americans rely on for their care. Thank you, and I now want to introduce Colin McDonald from the Justice Department.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. Today's record healthcare fraud charges and arrests makes clear that there is no case too big, no scheme too complex, and no hiding place too remote for our fraud-fighting team. In just 14 days, 455 defendants have been charged across the country for schemes involving over $6.5 billion in fraud. Under the leadership of President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Attorney General Blanche, the Department of Justice is aggressively scaling our offensive against anyone using healthcare as a front to steal from the American people. But today's cases allege more than the theft of taxpayer dollars. Many allege the theft of human dignity. Our sick, needy, and elderly, placing their faith in the gift of medicine, were neglected, ignored, and used for personal profit. For example, one defendant is charged with conspiring to submit approximately $89 million in false and fraudulent claims for cardiovascular tests. This defendant allegedly used marketing tactics designed to prey on fears that student athletes could die from sudden cardiac arrest. He then allegedly rubber-stamped test results as normal without reviewing them. Despite one patient's test results showing an enlarged heart, the defendant allegedly signed off on the test results within approximately 11 seconds of accessing the 63 test result images. As a result, the student was cleared to play, and he suffered sudden cardiac arrest and died on the basketball court just weeks later. That is why we cannot and will not tolerate fraud in healthcare. How are we going about targeting fraud in healthcare? We are following the data. Data talks and data doesn't lie. It identifies where fraud is happening and unmasks the perpetrators driving it. For example, our data analytics team observed a dramatic spike in payments for allografts from less than $1 billion in 2021 to over $14 billion just 4 years later. Our resulting investigations have led to criminal charges against 11 defendants across 6 districts for allograft fraud, including a company executive and 8 medical professionals. What happened here, to be clear, was not medicine. The defendants in these schemes purchased allografts for $30 to $75, inflated the price up to nearly 50 times that cost with the tab picked up by the taxpayers, and then secretly gave lucrative kickbacks for allografts applied. Marketers and nurses who took kickbacks targeted vulnerable hospice patients, making in many instances over $1 million per patient. These allograft fraud charges are the result of just one of our many data-driven initiatives. We are announcing today the first prosecution arising out of our Financial Intelligence Review Team, a cutting-edge effort to combine traditional data analytics with financial information. In less than 7 months, after identifying a suspicious behavioral health provider in Illinois, we brought charges against a defendant for a $67 million Medicaid fraud scheme. The defendant allegedly billed Medicaid for providing behavioral health services to patients who received no services and were actually even hospitalized at entirely separate health facilities at the time of the billings. Today is just the beginning of a new era of healthcare fraud enforcement. The Fraud Division's Healthcare Fraud Unit, which led today's nationwide takedown, is one of the best investments across the government, saving $106 for every dollar spent. And with the whole of government laser focused on rooting out fraud, under the leadership of the White House Task Force to Eliminate Fraud, we are rapidly enhancing our fraud fighting capabilities. Today, we are announcing an agreement with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to obtain dedicated cloud computing space in the CMS's cloud environment to run real-time advanced analytical models to detect fraud. We are also announcing agreements with the Federal Trade Commission and Customs and Border Protection to eliminate data silos and enrich our algorithms. And we're coordinating with prosecutors, agents, and analysts from across state and federal government at a scale and scope that has never before existed until today. The era of getting rich off America's healthcare system is over. If you defraud the American people and put profit over patients, we will do everything we can to put you in prison. I'll now turn the podium over to a critical partner in our fight against fraud, Director Kash Patel.
Thank you. America, you should take a look. You should take a look at what leadership from the White House and the President Trump's prioritization to go after and combat fraud looks like. America should take a look at the Vice President's task force and the initiative by the Justice Department here under AG Todd Blanche and AAG Colin McDonald. Fraud is no longer being tolerated, it is not being put up with, and you've seen the staggering numbers that in just the last 2 weeks, That's all we're here to talk about today. It's just the last 2 weeks of fraud, of perpetrators and criminals who have been arrested and apprehended from around the world, totaling over $6 and $7 billion in fraud, in money stolen from the American people. Our precious taxpayer dollars that are supposed to service our seniors and our kids were being stolen outright by individuals who thought they could get away with it. But thanks to the Trump administration and the Vice President's task force and the White House task force and Department of Justice's courageous prosecutors, we have now been able to charge a record number of individuals. I just want to go over a couple of things. One such individual, the FBI is responsible for what we call foreign transfer of custodies, FTOCs. Last week, the FBI executed 4 FTOCs on 4 separate continents in 24 hours. We did this because we had the backing of the White House and the U.S. government and the Department of Justice to go out and apprehend criminals wherever they are. One such individual related to fraud was apprehended in Turkey thanks to the relationships and partnerships between Ambassador Tom Barrack and the Turkish government. Mr. Hilmi was arrested after perpetrating a multi-billion-dollar fraud in Turkey, apprehended and transferred back to the United States of America while he faced prosecution. I also want to highlight the Vice President's brilliant idea to put together a most wanted fraudsters list. The FBI has always had our top 10 most wanted fugitive list. But in 2 weeks ago, I think we were all in Ohio where we announced our most wanted fraudsters list. And in just the last 2 weeks, thanks to the help of the American people in the world, we have apprehended 2 of the most wanted fraudsters already. One of those individuals, Herbert Leon Kimball, was apprehended in the Philippines. He's an American citizen. He had been bilking, allegedly, the system against Medicaid for billions of dollars since 2014, $1.2 billion in telemedicine specifically alone. That individual was apprehended in the Philippines and transported back to the United States of America, where he will now face justice. This is the reach of the United States government. This is the reach of this team, the interagency and state and local partners focused on one mission and one mission alone: to combat fraud and make sure the American public's precious taxpayer dollars go where they're supposed to go, to the American people that need them the most, and not to these criminals who are stealing from us day in and day out. Those days are over, and this should showcase to the world the length that we will go as an interagency and as a task force to apprehend and arrest and bring to justice anyone who steals our dollars that are meant for our most vulnerable citizens. We're also going to ask what we did in Ohio a couple of weeks ago, and we'll circulate it on social media later. We're adding 2 more individuals to the most wanted fraudster list. I said then, and I've said it before, the American people in the world are our best sources of information. There is no such thing as bad information. So if you have any information on Khalid Sitari, who is wanted for a $547 million genetic testing scheme, and we believe to be hiding in the United Arab Emirates, call 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Let us know. You saw what we did in just 2 weeks by apprehending 2 of the most wanted fraudsters. With your help, we will apprehend the rest of them. The last one is Emily Tai, who's also wanted in connection with the genetic testing scheme for allegedly stealing $90 million. And she was previously on an ankle monitor and fled, we believe, to Vietnam. So if the American public or anyone in the world has information on Emily Tai, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI. We need your information. We need your help. And you have now seen what we can collectively do as an interagency under the Attorney General's brilliant leadership and the prioritization at the White House, that fraud will not be tolerated, that fraud perpetrators will be apprehended, not just across the United States of America, but from the 4 corners of the world. So we plead with you to give us any and all information that you have. And again, the only type of bad information is the one that we don't receive from you. So please call 1-800-CALL-FBI with any information on any of the fraudsters on our most wanted list. And this should be a clear message to the world that the FBI, along with our interagency partners, are not tolerating fraud anymore. And we will chase them down just like we chase down terrorists, narco traffickers, gangbangers, and those that wish to do harm to our communities, because this type of harm is equally as harmful to our most vulnerable. Thank you. And I now turn it over to our brilliant partner, Dr. Oz.
I'm going to put my doctor's hat on here. There's 2 issues that we have not gone into in detail, but they've been mentioned by many. The first is affordability. The $100 billion that Secretary Kennedy mentioned is stolen from Medicare and Medicaid. If we were able to just take that out of what's being stolen from Medicare, would double the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund. It massively changes what people pay when we tolerate this kind of fraud. The second big message is that costs matter. They matter a lot. And they're measured oftentimes in ways that we can put on signs. But the actual cost is that of human health and the lives of humans hurt by these fraudsters, because they don't care about you. If they're willing to steal your money when you're down and out and struggling and you're vulnerable, they will definitely take your health and take your life if that's required. Today's actions are the results of months of painstaking collaboration by law enforcement agencies represented on this stage. The U.S. Attorney, of course, the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force, the FBI, HHS, OIG, CMS colleagues, all of us worked tirelessly towards one goal, making sure that people who steal from Medicare and Medicaid face real consequences, because it scares away future perpetrators. As Secretary Kennedy mentioned, the general approach has been slow, meandering, and non-consequential for fraudsters, which is why after COVID, they rushed into this space. CMS's role in this partnership has fundamentally changed because of the nature of the fraudsters. We now use techniques that historically were never thought of. Instead of just flagging problems, we build cases. Under the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, we've created a stellar team at CMS. Fraud fighters, including Kim Brandt and Janine Ugo and others, who brilliantly reinvent how we catch these criminals. And by the time our law enforcement partners are ready to move, we aim to hand them a file that is already complete, already ready, supported by payment suspensions and provider revocations, funding deferrals, real-time fraud detection that never existed before. Now, the numbers tell the story. I'm going to give you two really important ones. The first is, in the first quarter of last year, we revoked billing privileges for fraudsters of 1,006 providers. Pretty good result, we thought, at the time. This same period this year, the first quarter, we made 1,400 revocations. That's a 40% increase over last year. So 40% more revocations. We also have payment suspensions where we just don't pay the bill because we don't think it's legitimate. This is impressive. The first half of this year, we made 1,000 Medicare payment suspensions. 1,000. That's a lot of people. Nearly 800, by the way, from one state, California. For a similar period last year, we made 219 suspensions. So a fivefold, 500% increase in payment suspensions, because we're using tools now that historically had been used marginally. Now, these efforts brand all kinds of new tools for Medicare and Medicaid. The fraud war room that has been put together is a purpose-built tool to identify, track, and neutralize bad actors, often from foreign countries, much more effectively than the old system. The formula is straightforward. The DOJ brings a prosecutorial firepower. Law enforcement brings investigative tools. CMS brings data, the analytics. We use administrative muscle to push things through, and we are closing loopholes that fraudsters have avoided and been exploiting for years. Those days are over. Fraudsters, your time is up. Now, speaking of fraudsters, I want to highlight an important case that drives home what everyone on the stage really feels deeply in our heart. Kim, if you can be, this is Kim Brent that I mentioned earlier. Just bring that poster of the young man up. This young man has been referred to already. His name is Caden Francis. I spoke to his mother last night. Kim, just bring it up if you don't mind. Looks like a pretty good athlete. This young man was involved in a scheme run by fraudsters, including doctors, a cardiovascular testing company whose medical director approved EKGs and echocardiograms, as was mentioned earlier, by Colin, in as little as 11 seconds. That was this kid's case. The EKG was taken. His parents were told he was fine. The doctor, we believe, from the moment he got the image, said it was fine, was 11 seconds. The parents who had been marketed to, claiming that their kid might be at risk, were therefore told the kid was fine, when in fact nothing had been done. The October EKG was read as normal. The kid was dead a month later. Now, I talked to the mom, of course, still in pain. The family was told the tests were normal. Unfortunately, and despite all these internal communications that we revealed, which acknowledged by the company that they knew these were not normal tests and they had done something terribly wrong, they kept doing it. So that kid was hurt irreparably, passed away because nothing was done about these fraudsters, and they went right after it. Their company billed over $90 million while a child was buried by their family. No remorse whatsoever. Caden's mother wanted me to give you a quote. I'm going to read it exactly as she gave it to me. The doctor is as bad as any greedy criminal who is killing people in the streets. I hope he rots in jail so no one else is hurt, but my son will never come back to me. That's the real human costs that we were speaking of on the stage. Julian, the mother, shared the autopsy and revealed that her son's heart was 2.5 times normal. Instead of being this big, I'm a heart surgeon, that's a normal size heart, size of your fist, 2.5 times larger than that. There is no way you could miss that, except they didn't care. That's why mom wants them to rot in hell. This is not a diagnostic company. It's a predatory scheme dressed up in medical clothing, and we're going to treat it as such. We've got a couple big breakthroughs. Let me put them in some of these numbers to at least give you some confidence that the pay and chase model that CMS had relied on, that Secretary Kennedy spoke to, has been abandoned. And instead, we don't want the money going out the back door. We want the fraud detected as soon as it happens, and we can stop it that way. In original Medicare so far, in the year of 2025, we've done a remarkable job. In 2024, before he came in, we saved about 60% less money than this. So total amount of money saved last year, $42 billion. That's a return on investment of $22 for every dollar that we pulled back for the American taxpayer. 2/3 of those savings, $28 billion, came from simply locking the front door, never letting the money go out the door. That's provider revocations, automated claim denials, all the things that should have been done years ago. No longer will that money be taken out of your pocketbooks. We've achieved this with only a 5% increase in Medicare program integrity spending. This is the best way for us to spend your tax dollars wisely. The Medicaid side is more difficult because states run Medicaid, but we've been on that as well. Savings reached $4 billion last year. That's a 165 increase over the prior year. And that we did that actually by spending 7% less money. So we spent less money, brought in more fraudsters, saved you a lot more money. These results don't happen by accident. They reflect a deliberate strategic shift in how CMS operates, and they show what's possible when agencies stop working in silos and start working as partners, like the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force has been able to achieve. Jetson Leader Lewis, Jake Foster, OIG Leader March Bell, Rebecca Yuan. There's lots of other people in the room right now who deserve a lot of credit. All of us agree with the president and the vice president that the best prescription for a fraudster is prosecution. The era of champagne on private jets is over. No longer will champagne and private jets be paid for by the American taxpayer. Andrew Ferguson leads that White House Anti-Fraud Task Force together with Colin McDonald and the vice president. I asked him to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. President said he wanted a whole of government approach to combating healthcare fraud and fraud across all our benefits programs, and this is the result. Every major leader in this space from the federal government is standing up here, and all have contributed in critically important ways to this effort. Investigators, prosecutors, healthcare specialists, the leadership at HHS and at CMS have made today possible. I also want to thank Jake Foster and his team, Justin Woodward and Rebecca Uya at DOJ at the healthcare fraud unit that has broken records with today's effort, not just in their own prosecutions, but in harnessing the power of the U.S. attorneys and state attorneys general to make today possible. The vice president has always said we have to take a two-pronged approach to this. We have to stop the money from getting out of the agencies. Administrator Oz and Secretary Kennedy have talked about that. And then we have to impose consequences on people that have defrauded the American government. And we've been saying that we're doing this to save these programs from the fraud that is bleeding them dry, that will make them unavailable in the future for future generations, to protect the investment, the trillions of dollars of investment that every American taxpayer makes every single year to help their friends, their neighbors, and strangers in times of need. But I also, like Dr. Oz, I want to talk about the real human toll of this for a minute. I want to talk about skin substitutes or allografts. 5 years ago, Medicare was paying out less than $1 billion every year in allografts and skin substitutes. By 2025, almost $15 billion. These programs were riddled with fraud. And yes, that's a problem because it takes money out of all of our pockets and puts it into the hands of the worst people on the planet. But this doesn't just affect all of us. These frauds affect individual American citizens in horrifying ways. We saw this, for example, in Minnesota, where a program designed to protect veterans from homelessness was so attacked by fraudsters, they had to shut the thing down because they couldn't afford it anymore. I want to talk about a particular case that the department is indicted today out of the District of Nevada, where a nurse practitioner is accused of having bilked Medicaid for almost $1 billion in skin substitute allografts. But this isn't just filing fake claims and trying to take money out of our pockets. She was performing these skin substitute procedures on vulnerable elderly Americans in hospices and in nursing homes, and then submitting those claims. She was using human beings, American citizens, as living piggy banks, and that she took the money she got from those living piggy banks and she bought $865,000 necklaces that the department seized, almost $500,000 Ferrari that the department also seized. We've heard a lot about the numbers today. We've heard how many records have been broken by the Department of Justice's and HHS's incredible efforts today. But the numbers shouldn't be treated as an abstraction. This doesn't just affect the whole country as taxpayers. Real human beings, American citizens, are physically maimed because of this fraud. So shutting down this fraud, killing these incentives for people to commit fraud, putting people in jail to commit these frauds aren't just about protecting the fisc. They're not just about protecting the program. They are about protecting our fellow American citizens from the worst of us. That is why this is so important. That's why the vice president assembled this task force at the president's direction. And this is the result. The entire federal government deploying all of its resources at home and abroad to end the fraud and to protect American citizens. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to DEA Administrator Terry Cole.
Thank you, and Mr. Attorney General. Good morning, sir. We stand here today united to share the commitment to protect Americans and save American lives. It's been said, but bears repeating, healthcare fraud is not just a financial crime. It's a public safety threat, a public health threat, and a direct threat to the trust the Americans place in our healthcare system. Let me be clear. Medical providers who fuel addiction, endanger lives, and profit from pain they cause are no different than any other drug trafficker. DEA occupies a unique place in this fight. We sit at the intersection of healthcare, regulation, and law enforcement. Our job is to protect the controlled substance supply chain and stop those who seek to exploit it. The CSA created a closed system of distribution, one designed to keep medications available for legitimate care while preventing diversion and abuse. Every link in that chain has a responsibility to protect patients and to preserve trust in the system. Being a DEA registrant is not just a privilege. It is a responsibility. It is a promise to patients that medical decisions will be based on clinical judgment, not financial gain. While the vast majority of healthcare professionals honor that promise, criminals have found ways to exploit the system for personal gain. As both a law enforcement and regulatory agency, DEA sees things others don't. We connect the dots between drug diversion, fraud, and criminal activity. And when we find those abusing positions of trust, we act. We use every authority available, criminal, civil, and administrative, to protect patients and preserve trust in our nation's healthcare system. In this takedown alone, DEA developed 18 criminal and civil cases in coordination with U.S. attorneys' offices and issued a record 928 administrative actions to prevent future harm. This includes 205 orders to show cause, 53 immediate suspensions, and 642 surrenders for cause. In one case, we work with our partners. We uncovered $36 million in Medicaid fraud, resulting in the seizure of $15 million in U.S. currency, 6 aircrafts from a single physician. In another case, we identified a pillar of a pill mill, clinics operating, that were issuing more than 2 million oxycodone prescriptions and over 900,000 hydrocodone prescriptions. Each scheme chips away at the safeguards put into place to ensure every patient gets the medication they need safely and lawfully. Americans should never have to wonder whether a prescription was written because it was needed or because someone saw an opportunity to profit. Our message to any medical provider who abuses that trust is simple. If you choose personal greed over professional responsibility, DEA will hold you accountable. DEA has been entrusted to save American lives. We will not stand idle while criminals exploit patients abuse positions of trust, and put profit over people. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome HSI Matt Mulholland.
Thanks, Jay. Good morning. My name is Matthew Mulholland. I'm the Acting Deputy Executive Associate Director of Homeland Security Investigations, the principal investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. Today's announcement marks a pivotal moment in our nation's ongoing fight against healthcare fraud, a crime that steals from American taxpayers. It puts vulnerable patients at risk. As part of the Department of Homeland Security, HSI is proud to stand alongside our partners in this historic effort. HSI's mission is clear: to safeguard the American public and economy from criminal organizations and individuals who seek to exploit our benefits system for personal gain. Healthcare fraud undermines trust in our healthcare system and diverts resources from those who need them most. This year's National Healthcare Fraud Takedown is the largest in history, with 455 defendants charged across 45 states and territories, and more than $6.5 billion in alleged fraud uncovered. HSI plays a critical role in investigating the transnational criminal networks behind this fraud, identifying and apprehending fugitives overseas, and disrupting schemes that span across borders. Our special agents, working closely with the Department of Justice, HHS, the FBI, the DEA, our local and state and international partners, demonstrated extraordinary dedication and expertise, using advanced data analytics and financial intelligence to follow money, seize assets, and ensure accountability at every level. Their commitment, collaboration, and innovation have made today's results possible. Together, we've shown that no criminal, no matter how sophisticated or well hidden, can evade the reach of the U.S. government. HSI remains steadfast in its commitment to protecting the American people, defending the integrity of our nation's financial infrastructure, and ensuring that those who abuse it are held accountable. Today's actions send a powerful message. If you target our healthcare programs, you will be found, you will be prosecuted, and you will be brought to justice. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll take a couple questions on what we're here for today. If you want to hear from somebody in particular on stage, just feel free to lead with that. Any questions? Alex?
Yeah, last year's announcement, it was $14.6 billion of intended fraud loss. This year, you said $6.5 billion. I'm wondering, can you explain the discrepancy there? Is this as a result of fewer prosecutions, less money, or is, as Dr. Oz mentioned, the idea that you guys are catching this before the money goes out the door? Is that having an impact?
Yeah, look, I think it's a combination of everything you just said. It's a combination. There were a couple cases last year that made that number that high, and so we said this year we have been doing an extraordinary amount of work. And when I say we, the Department of Justice, I'm saying everybody on this stage and folks in the back. And part of that work includes turning off the spigot. That's right. And so it includes more detection early on that stops the claims from even going anywhere near a payment being issued. And that's part of the reason. And so, yeah, we had a great year last year, too, when it comes to combating fraud. If you are an American taxpayer, you should be extraordinarily happy with what you see on the stage right now, not only because of what we're talking about today, but because of what we were talking about a year ago when we had a similar day. And I expect that you're going to hear more from us over the next several months, because this, for the first time, at least in modern history, everybody is working together. When we talked about state AGs, we're talking about Republicans, Democrats, we're talking about New York, we're talking about Florida. This is a chronic problem that was actually hurting so many people, not only financially, but thievery, but also hurting, like you heard today, the stories. So look, I think we had a great year last year, right? A phenomenal year this year, and I expect there'll be more happening over the next year, the rest of the year.
And then just an off topic, if I could.
No off topics. Next question. And we got a lot of people here for this reason. So we got a lot of people here for this reason and they give up their time. So next question. Yes.
He gets to ask his question on the topic that he chooses. We're not here as spectators. So.
Are
are states, but with both Democratic and Republican leaders, working with federal authorities to identify these cases or investigate and provide facts?
I think, Colin, you want to handle that?
Yes, thank you for the question. And just to clarify, last year, which was a great result by our department, there were 324 defendants that were charged in last year's takedown. Today, 455 in the last 14 days have been charged with fraud offenses. And to your question about the state participation, we have last year, I believe there were 13 states that participated with us in our takedown. And this year we are in the high 40s of those who have come to the table to add their resources to come work with us, because this truly is a national problem that demands a national response. And that's really driven by the White House Fraud Task Force, which is bringing everybody together to say, hey, if we don't solve it, no one will. And folks are coming to the table to ensure that we do this work against the fraudsters better than we've ever done it before.
In the case involving the basketball player who died, and I know Dr. Oz, you were highlighting that, was that resolved and solved through sort of old-fashioned law enforcement work, or were there techniques and tools that the Justice Department or other agencies employed that resulted in that $89 million fraud being detected?
There was boots on the ground. Individuals went, they got the records, they could tell how many seconds transpired between when the actual EKG was sent to the doctor in question and when the readout was delivered, so saying that it was normal. And again, I'll speak as a heart physician. There's no way you could miss this diagnosis. This child's heart on autopsy was massive. And if it's 2.5 times bigger than your fist, it looks like that. And the child had echocardiogram and EKG, also had Dopplers of his carotids and groins. And this doctor was practicing in multiple states, which is one of the things doctors do to hide their path. They can sneak around. And the mom is in Florida. And it's really tragic. And I just want to highlight, this is a dead child is a dead child, red state, blue state, it doesn't matter. And that's why I think so many states are participating, because Medicaid is a program that is run by the states, and having them all on board, I think, is a reinforcing element to the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force.
Are you getting cooperation from the healthcare corporations in terms of detecting this fraud? What's your relationship with the healthcare corporations? Are these one-offs that are just individuals that are kind of, sneaking through the getting around the controls, or are the companies helping to detect this fraud?
That's a good question. Who's the best to answer that? Colin?
Yes, we have great working relationships with healthcare corporations who are required to be alert to instances of fraud across their programs. And we collaborate with them to make sure that we can illuminate fraudsters across the healthcare portfolio. And we encourage every healthcare corporation to come work with us to root out those who are seeking to defraud the American people by exploiting our healthcare programs.
Mr. Attorney General, will you take one off-topic question?
No.
You got to take an off-topic.
Any other questions?
Sir?
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
What do you guys think about that? Oh, mercy. All right, you guys, let me give you one more and then we'll lay down. I know I said that before, but let me share this with you if you didn't catch it.
Chicago for us. My thanks. John?
All right, let's bring the White House Borders out. Tom Hummon for more on this.
It was
Tom, I
like
said at the top of this
Tom
hour, you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, she was involved to this degree. The fact that she's a former teacher as well, overstayed her visa, and then gets released by authorities in Illinois.
Steely girl. That's one.
Deported. But how would we get to this point?
Look, it's the sanctuary city policies, the dangerous policies of these sanctuary, states, sanctuary cities. Look, she was complicit in the murder of 3 people, and they didn't honor or detain her, release her back to the street. Like I say it again, President Trump has promised the American people he's going to make this country safe again. And one of the ways he's going to do that is remove illegal aliens or public safety threats. So ISIS is going to continue to do their job. But let's be clear, it makes it less efficient. It makes it harder to do that job. We have local law enforcement that won't help us. And it's not the police officer in Chicago. Last time I was up to do an operation, I had numerous Chicago police officers come up and thank us for doing what we're doing. It's the politicians. It's Mayor Johnson. It's Governor Pritzker that doesn't want. They rather see public safety at risk than give President Trump what they think a win by decreasing crime in their cities. It's ridiculous.
Well, we're really getting a view, Tom, and welcome back to the program, where some of these far left candidates stand on ICE and deportations. This is State Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, the Democratic candidate for New York, on how she feels about ICE today. Listen.
People are really worried about ICE. You know, we've had multiple raids in the district. People are being torn away from their communities and their families. We want to see this agency abolished.
This is what they're out there saying, Tom. To that you say what?
ICE has found 146,000 children, just shy of 147,000 children, just shy of that number, of children that were smuggled in this country in the Biden administration and lost. They rescued many of these children that were in sex trafficking and forced labor. ICE has seized enough fentanyl to kill every American 2 times over again. ICE is arresting sexual predators at a record number. We have the most secure border in history of this nation because of President Trump's leadership. This country is safer again because of President Trump's leadership. Look, what President Trump did in Memphis, what he did in Washington, D.C. can happen in Chicago, can happen in New York. If they just join us shoulder to shoulder and take on criminal illegal aliens, somebody don't want to do that. And she wants to talk about separating families. Why don't she go have a meeting with a couple hundred angel moms that I've met with in the last couple of years who've been separated from their child permanently because they buried them, because their child was murdered by someone that's not even supposed to be here. You want to talk about real family separation? There you go right there. Let's talk about 500,000 children that were separated from their parents and put in the hands of criminal cartels under the Biden administration and smuggled in this country, and they lost track of 300,000 of them. Let's talk about that. They seem to forget the 4 years of travesty that put children and families at risk, but we are out there trying to save them.
Well, they don't seem to care a lick about that, Tom, because you have Claire Valdez there, and then there's Daria Lisa Chevalier, who said this about deportations, quote, "I'm not okay with any deportation. I think all deportation is wrong because I think it's an incredibly cruel punishment that is really only relegated to people on the basis of where they were born. And, you know, I think that we should just not have a system that allows deportation to happen at all." She doesn't even want to deport criminals, people who've been not only just charged, but people who've been convicted of crimes in this country.
Yeah.
And this is a far left socialist movement that intends to sweep across the country.
Well, I don't think it's going to be successful. I think the American people put President Trump in the Oval Office behind me because of his promise to secure the border and remove criminal aliens, which we're doing at record numbers. You look at 800,000 deportation, about 60 to 70% of being criminals. We've removed hundreds of thousands of criminals off the streets of this country because of President Trump's leadership. We're not going to stop. They can talk the talk all they want. We're going to keep doing our job of removing public safety threats because that's what the majority of American people want. These politicians are nuts. They lost their minds. We're going to keep doing our job, John.
But what's your warning, though, if as we work our way to midterm elections and beyond, if more and more of these far left candidates get more and more voter support, what's your warning for the message that they're putting out there about ICE and as many of them who have called to abolish it altogether?
Then run for the United States Senate, run for the United States House of Representatives and change the law. What they need to understand is ICE isn't making this up. ICE is enforcing the law that many of them wrote and enacted into law and signed by President. And we are prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. That should be a nonpartisan issue. American people are dying every day at the hands of someone that's not even supposed to be here. That is just a stone cold fact. And besides listening to these far left politicians, I invite everybody to go to ice.gov and look at the great work the men and women of ICE are doing. Look at the great work the men of the United States Border Patrol are doing. This is what American people voted for. And when it comes right down to the end, I think American people can continue to support immigration enforcement, especially when we prioritize the worst of the worst.
Tom, last time we had you on the program, you were considering surging ICE into New York because of Kathy Hochul's policies. Where do you stand on that today?
It's coming.
And care to expand?
Yeah.
I can't, you know,
Put a little meat on that bone there, Tom.
we're not going to forecast when we're going to be there, but I made a promise and we're going to be there. It's not, and she likes to call it a threat. It's not a threat. When we lose the cooperation of the jails, we lose cooperation of the sheriffs, and we can't now rent a bed from a local sheriff to detain an illegal alien for his proceedings, that means instead of one officer arresting one bad guy in the jail, now we got to go to the street and find them if they release them, which means I got to send a whole team out. Because of what she signed, that legislation, we have to increase resources because it's going to take a hell of a lot more resources to arrest these criminals because we lost the efficiencies of the jail. It's not a threat. It's just a realistic response to losing the efficiencies of law enforcement working with us and the jails working with us. We have to increase resources because now we got more people in the public to find. And here's the downside. For her, not for me, but when we find that bad guy, many times he's with others that may not be a criminal threat. They're in the country illegally. Well, guess what? Collateral arrest will increase. And every illegal alien we arrest in that state will be put on an airplane and sent to another state to be detained because we lost the cooperation of local jails.
All right. Well, I'm sure that we're going to hear a whole lot more about this in the days ahead. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now.
All right, you guys, are we still friends? You guys are rocking out in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Feel free to leave me a comment under my community post if you're trying to communicate with me. I'm praying for the country. I'm praying for all of you guys. I got to get a little workout in before I go to work. Let me see what you guys are saying. Go Trump. Okay. I see you guys. Stewie girl, you were rocking out in the chat. Claude and Doc held me down. Stewie girl, big hugs. All right, you guys. I love you guys. I'm going to work out and get some shut eye, and I will see you guys later. There's been an update in the Carmelo Anthony case. Carmelo Anthony has a legal team now that is pretty dynamic. We'll talk about that another time. And then Nancy Guthrie, I shared that with you guys yesterday. She's now, they're saying that she's no longer alive. Prayers to the Guthrie family. There's a lot that's going on, and we have a lot to talk about. See you guys later. Bye-bye. Doc, anytime. Bye, you guys.